Hello, my name is Winfrey. Welcome to the story of my 2025 archery buck that we named Thorn. To be honest, when we first got into this, was not thinking anything about creating a video or a film. It was simply to create a memory for my boys. I remember growing up at deer camp and listening to my dad's stories, my uncle's stories, and their friends' stories, telling me about all these deer that they were able to harvest and hunt and just the fun memories that they made. And I remember thinking back, I would pay anything to be able to watch those live. And so when I had my first son, Duke, I immediately realized, you know what? With technology nowadays, I can at least film my hunts with my phone to create a memory for them to see one day as well. So that's what we were able to do here. This buck, Thorn, the story for this deer, it started just over 2 years ago. And it was the summer of 2023. I got word from some of the farmers around that there was a nice group of bucks that were hanging out on this property. So as we were heading to one of our farms, the property that they had mentioned and talked about, I stopped and I glassed this field. Sure enough, they were right. There's this bachelor group of bucks looking all beautiful, and there was a really nice buck by the name of Bud that I was able to harvest that year. After laying eyes on him, I immediately started a relationship with that farmer, called him, asked it for permission. He granted me permission to hunt that farm, and then started putting together a game plan to hunt Bud. On September 17th of that year, I was able to harvest, at that time, my biggest buck, being Bud, who had 18 scoreable points. And it was just a really fun hunt, really cool story. It happened on September 17th, which was 3 days after we found out that we were pregnant with my son Duke, and it was the day that I got voted in as one of the senior pastors of our church at Team FBC in Lebanon, Missouri. So that was just a special memory that I was able to cherish with my wife, story I had with Duke, but also it helped me get familiar with this property. I was able to learn a lot, where the deer were kind of bedding at, what time they would come out, and how they were using this piece of land. Well, fast forward to the summer of 2024. I'm doing the normal summer scouting things just to kind of see what deer are on the property. And that is when we started in July getting pictures of the buck that we now call Thorn. We knew Thorn was going to be a good deer early on in July. I was able to follow him in July, into August, but unfortunately in September, the week before season started on September 15th, the deer just disappeared. Thorn was gone. Had no more pictures of him, wasn't anywhere to be found. I became really good friends with one of the neighbors, Cody Hammonds, and through contacting him and talking to him, he was actually on and he had Thorn on camera. And he was actually able to put a lot of time into hunting him in the 2024 season. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for me, he was not able to catch up with Thorn in 2024, which brings us to the summer of 2025. Same thing, I put out my cameras. This time I did not get a picture of Thorn though until the beginning of August. And the day I got the first picture of Thorn, I got it from the cell camera, it sent it to me immediately. It was a Sunday night, Duke and I were at home. We jump in the truck, we go, and we were able to lay eyes on Thorn coming out into the field on that August day. Through laying eyes on Thorn, it immediately began this just excitement and this adventure of putting up a game plan to hunting Thorn. And so I was able to spot him and video him multiple times from that same glassing point about 300 yards away from where he was coming out on. But what I was able to learn from scouting him is what directions he was going. There were some days he would come out and he would head north towards a hayfield. Sometimes he would come out and he would head south. But typically he was coming out of this same spot each time. And so I was able to identify where probably for sure he was bedding at. And then through cell cam pictures and different things like that, I was able to develop a little bit of a pattern of Thorn and where he was going and what was taking place. But in my mind, I'm also thinking back to the year before, him leaving the week before season. So I knew I probably was gonna have to get on this deer early. So I immediately began putting together a plan of when he is coming out, because there was something weird going on. He'd be on camera for a few days, he'd be gone for a few days. He'd be back on that camera for a few days, and then he'd be gone for a few days. And so, being the nerd that I am, I went to Excel and started making a game plan of all the different times that Thorn was coming out. So went through all the way back to 2024 when I had pictures of him, and we started to put together the timestamp, the day he was coming out, and I put all that inventory into Excel. And then after I put all that into Excel, sent it to ChatGPT and it analyzed it for me of putting the wind direction and the temperature of the days he was coming out on camera into that Excel spreadsheet. Then after analyzing that data, what I was able to learn was he was coming in front of that camera, heading to that hayfield to the south, anytime that there was a north wind. So I knew that if there was a north wind, I was gonna need to be in this spot. So I go in the week before season, set up that tree stand, so I'm ready to rock and roll whenever that first north wind hits, when season starts on the 15th. Opening day of season, sitting at work, we get the first rain that we have had in southwest Missouri in over a month. I immediately look at my app, the wind shifted towards out of the north, in a meeting, say, hey boys, I gotta go, catch me up later. Go and take a few shots at the target, grab my stuff, head out to the field and get fully set up in that stand by 5 o'clock. And I'm sitting there for about an hour when the first action takes place and a doe and her fawn are able to make their way into the field. That doe and fawn, they kind of make their way down, past me to the left. Then a little bit later, a few minutes later, I hear another doe and fawn who make their way out into the field. And as they work their way past me, they finally leave. But then once they get behind me, just to the edge of the hayfield, I hear them blow and they spook off. And initially this kind of like scared me, but then I remember does blow that all the time. And most likely it didn't mess anything up. But what it taught me was that is where my scent, my thermals were dropping by the time it got to the hayfield. So I knew I had about this amount of time, or the amount of time I had to make sure I got a shot at this deer if he came out. And so fast forward just a little bit, about another 15 minutes, it's like 7:15 now. I hear, the loud crunch of, leaves, a limb breaking. You just tell it's a larger animal. Turn my phone camera on, and sure enough, the bachelor group of bucks begin to walk out. And the first one is this little 8-point that had been showing up with Thorn, and then a little bit bigger 8-point that we call Sunny came out, and then Thorn was able to make its way into the field. Thorn came into 15 yards. I couldn't believe it. Broadside, quartering away just slightly, and able to put an arrow through him, straight through the heart. He went only 22.3 yards, where he was able to pile up in that little creek underneath that tree. And I mean, at that moment, that is when the tree and the adrenaline, it really started hitting. That tree shook like it never shook before. I mean, immediately I have a heart just full of gratitude. I'm pumped up, I'm excited. In that moment, just found myself praying and thanking the Lord, just gratitude for the entire moment. FaceTime, my wife, FaceTime all my buddies, FaceTime my dad, just to share the excitement. After getting to lay hands on him, one of my buddies I called was called McBride. He came and he helped me, get the deer worked up and everything. Cody Hammonds, my neighbor, who had also been hunting that evening for the same deer, he came over and his side-by-side helped me load him up, haul him out, and we were able to snag some cool pictures. But the hunt of this deer, even though it only lasted about 2 hours, the hunt for him, it really was just the hours and hours and hours of prep work that went into it, knowing that if there was this wind direction, where he was going to be, when he was going to be there, and being in the right tree to take place. Pretty special. Learning this property now, that's the second deer I've killed out of there, and really cool, though, to be able to learn a property and work out 2 times in the same tree, the same location. So just pretty cool there. Also talking to Cody, he ended up finding the shed that week before to Thorn, and so he let me have it. And it's pretty cool. You can tell it and how he got his name. You have a sticker coming off that G3 there. That's how he got his name, because it just kind of thorns out, and that identifying marker right there is kind of how you can tell that it's his shed. But anyway, just a really fun, really cool hunt on an opening day, first opening day deer that I've ever had. One sit, was able to kill him. Really cool opportunity. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch the story, listen to the story of Thorn.